Good morning, this is David Plazas, Community Conversation Editor of the News Press. It is June 25th, 2012. We have the privilege of having with us Don Stilwell, candidate for Lee County Commissioner, District 2. And before we begin, if we can ask the editorial board members to please introduce themselves for the record.
Cole Peacock, alumni with the editorial board and represent Fort Myers.
Dick Calfish, Cape Coral.
Pam Grotehouse, Bonita Springs.
Don Eslick, alumni board member from Estero.
And Terry Everway with the News Press.
Mr. Stilwell, tell us, why are you running for this position?
Being an elected official has never been an aspiration of mine. I'm not a politician. I started out in the private sector, never thought about being in government. Got involved in government because I thought I had a friend who was city manager, and I kept telling him how bad things were. And he suggested I come down and get involved, and I got involved. And then I was involved for, prior to coming to Lee County, I was involved in 5 different cities and counties in 3 different states, in 2 different states, Florida being the 3rd state. And I was, as I say, I was a city county manager, and I loved it. And I went back out in the private sector. I was recruited back out there and had a very successful 6-year-plus-year career in the private sector where I made some serious money, amazing money for someone working in the public sector. And we did a lot of good things. But again, even when I was in the private sector, we had 27 cities and counties all across the United States that we were working with, the councils, commissions, boards, whatever the governing bodies happen to be. So I've always been, even when out in the private sector, I've always been in government. So I came to Lee County in 1993. I was recruited by a national recruiter, and I'd always heard about Lee County, and it wasn't favorable, frankly. It was kind of a joke. And in 1993, when I came to work here, I believe I was either the 4th or the 5th county administrator in 7 years. The title at that time was county administrator. And everyone used to always say, the joke was, hey, if you can't get a job anyplace else, just go to Lee County. They're always looking for a manager. And you know, that's not a good reputation to have. But when the recruiter came to me, and that intrigued me. And I came to Lee County because they had problems. We were coming out of a recession. Things have been bad. There have been board members in serious trouble. There have been the assessor gone to jail. There have been lots of serious problems. So it was an opportunity to turn things around. And throughout my career, I've been an architect of change, if you will, a change agent, whatever you want to call it. And I've been hired, I think the only job, I only had one job where I went in where everything was stable and good. The rest of the time I went into situations that needed change. Things had to be done differently. So when I lost my job in Lee County in 2009, I know this is a long response, but when I lost my job in 2009, I've been on the sidelines for 3 years. And I'm still involved in government. I love it. I'm intrigued with it. I think government has many opportunities to do many good things. But frankly, I've been disappointed. For the last 3 years, Lee County has been balancing their operational budget with monies from the general fund reserve that we build up over a 16-year period of time. And reserves should be used, in my opinion, reserves should be used for unexpected occurrences. When you start basing your budget, balancing it on reserves, it's like if you spend your checking account, your savings account, you start spending that, there's going to come a time when you're going to have anything left, then what are you going to do? And that's where we're coming to Lee County. We've done that 3 years in a row. And the budget's that's going to start in October 1 of this year. Again, they're proposing to take another $30 million from the general fund reserve, property tax dollars, and balance the budget. And I think that's totally unacceptable. I thought someone else was running for the board. I was aware of the 3 individuals that are also running the same seat I am. Good people. I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but none of them have the experience and background to address what needs to be done to turn this thing around. You can't just go there and hope and have a good idea. And I've got the track record to do it. And I wasn't going to do it because I thought someone else was going to do it. And that person called me, I don't know, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. It was on a Wednesday night, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and said, I'm not running, but I think you should. And I started running the next day because I honestly think I'm the only viable option. I've been there, I've done it, I know what's broken, I know how to fix it.
Now, speaking about how to fix it, specifically with the challenges that Lee County faces today, what suggestions would you make to the county manager if elected in order to fix it?
I don't think it's any commissioner's role to go out and direct the county manager. I think that's one of the clear things you've got to be very careful about. You know, a county manager takes care of the implementation of the direction that the board is setting. The board sets the policy, the direction. The county manager takes care of the implementation. But I do think you should have it very clear from the board to the county manager, staff. I prefer rather, I don't like county manager because it's not a person, it's staff. And staff is there, and staff is there to carry out the direction of the board and get them to the destination the board wants to go to. But the board has to come to that consensus, so you can't fault the city manager or county manager or whatever the title happens to be until the governing body comes to some kind of consensus. And you can't come to consensus if everyone's posturing. And I think that the tone of the board.
Just as a follow-up, you know, with regard to the policy, if you're elected to the board,
Yes.
specifically what policy would you like to see the county staff implement with regard to budget issues, balancing the budget, and getting back to that fiscal responsibility?
I think the first thing that the board needs to do is talk among themselves and realize that they're not giving clear direction to staff. And I think the board needs, the first thing that the board needs to do, and I would try very hard to do this, and I think I could do it very well. I remember I've needed all my life, I've needed 3 votes from the board to get anything done. And I've been quite successful in getting 3 votes. And if I'm a board member, I only need 2 votes, because I'm gonna vote for what I think is right. So I would only do 2 votes, and that's, to me, that's kind of exciting. But I think it's clear what needs to be done. The board needs to ask staff to come back with options as to what should be done, and staff should be making a strong recommendation as to what they feel the best option to be, and then there should be a discussion about that, a very public discussion, not between the board and staff, but I think between staff, the public, the boards that they're listening to it, and then the board takes that, after having that input from the staff, public, then the board takes that back, and then they have the board discussion. What is happening now, as I observe it, staff comes in with some options, doesn't give any kind of clear indication as to where they feel they should be going, because frankly, and I'm not faulting staff, because they don't have any clear direction to the board. So everyone's kind of milling around, and the staff comes in with these things and says, you know, this would kind of be good, or I think, or maybe, and the board kind of, they immediately take it, and they start discussing it, and no one wants to jump out there and be wrong or be chastised. So they kind of say, staff, well, come back with something and you know, come back a month from now. And there's no discussion. And the public, and this is my frustration, the public, the general public, they don't like the tone of the board, they don't like the, you know, everyone thinks individual board members are good people, and I agree with that. I'm not going to say they're bad people or anything like that, but there's no coming together, there's no consensus. And the tone coming from the board is not a positive tone. And the board needs to set that tone to get the staff to become involved and taking, you pay staff. That's the reason you pay staff, to come in to run things, to operate things, and give you the best options and a strong recommendation on what to do. And unfortunately, we're not vetting that in the public. And I'm surprised, frankly, I'm surprised. The news press, you know, I've had my moments with the news press and all media. You always do if you're a strong manager, and that's good, that's healthy. You need to have those discussions. But I don't see anyone particularly concerned about the fact that we've been operating our reserves for 3 years, and we're proposing to spend another $30 million out of reserve. And I'm hearing from people I know on the staff saying, well, you know, Don, the problem is we lost 45% of our revenue. Well, certainly did. I know that. I'm sorry, I lost 90% of my revenue 3 years ago, and I'm not living the same way I used to live. My house is for sale. I scaled back my standard of living tremendously. That's reality. And everyone I know is going through the same thing. You know, I know people in all walks of life. I talk to them all the time. And they tell me the same story. And it's not real to expect that you can have a rollback rate at the county. That's kind of the bureaucratic term for it. They call it the rate, so we could capture the same number of dollars that we had before everything went bad. That's not realistic. I think any elected official that proposes going back to the rollback rate and producing the same amount of revenue that they had before would get run out of office, and rightly so. There shouldn't be any discussion of rollback rates until we know, what should be the focus of the county, how much of that can we afford with current dollars, and now what are we going to do? Then you come together and make a resolution.
Well, how difficult